Hi there. My name is Marilyn Powers, and I am the manager for the AR/VR Applied Research and Academics Group here at Mohawk College. I am excited to be here today to talk to you about one of my passions, which is how AR and VR can be applied in many ways in many industries. I got my start as an engineer at the University of Waterloo, taking mechanical engineering. It was a fantastic introduction to learning how to do problem solving and figuring out how to use technology to actually solve some real life issues. I followed that by going out to the University of Calgary and doing a master's in biomechanics, and continued in that realm that was very exciting, which was taking those engineering principles and applying technology to how do we measure things in the human body. And I ended up focusing on virtual reality surgical simulation. And when I finished that, I did a PhD in virtual reality surgical simulation. And then I had the chance to actually go and develop that kind of simulator as a postdoc, and then later on in management. And I got a patent out of it, which was really exciting for a mechanical engineer to go and design something that's going to go in a simulator. This is basically a robot, but it gives you force feedback rather than rather than it going from place to place. This is one where the human's in the loop. So lots of interesting things to consider when you put a human inside the loop of a robot, because normally you stand clear of any kind of robots you're doing. So this robot actually went into the world's first neurosurgical simulator, which was also very exciting. That simulator was started at NRC in Boucherville, Quebec. It's now been sold, I heard. It's at CAE, which was interestingly my next foray in this world of VR and into simulation. And I had the opportunity to start looking at how do we teach people and train people on skills using simulation, using experiential learning, using VR, using AR. So had a lot of experience in there in that, and I'm just giving you some of the quick highlights. And this was really cool. If you don't know CAE, which you probably don't because it's a Montreal-based company, CAE is known for these flight simulators you see here. That actually simulates an airplane. And if you walk on the inside of that, you will feel like you're in the cockpit of an airplane. And it's considered a level D simulator, which in aviation means that every hour you put on in that simulator counts as an hour of flying a real plane. And when they graduate pilots from this, they fly a plane, and the first time it's full of passengers. And they're not the first, they're the assistant pilot, but still, they've taken VR to the ultimate level, which is do all the safety training before you actually fly the real plane. So I also worked in software, so in tech, which was a very different work environment. This is where people work on teams to develop software applications in many things. And mine, again, I stayed in the realm of education, and we were developing the learning management system that's used by a lot of colleges and universities and high schools in Ontario, but also around the world. So there, I really got to understand how a lot of the web applications get built and things like that, and learn a lot more about how to develop products when it comes to tech. By this time in my career, I was a product manager, and that's something I love to teach, is all about how do you get a product from an idea in your head out into the marketplace, and how do you build that? How did you work with a team to come up with the design and put that into practice? So also a very interesting skill set that is a very new kind of role that has existed in its current form, just getting going in the last 10 years. When I first started doing product management, there wasn't a title of product management at the place I worked. That's how new it was at the time. But now I'd like to talk to you about something I've been working a lot more in since I've come to Mohawk in the last couple of years, and that is virtual reality. And today, my message to you is that virtual reality is this massive media form that's coming at you. and it's going to impact your future. So you need to understand a little bit more about what that is, but also I'm hoping to inspire you and get you a little bit excited about all the areas that this media form is taking you in, because it does require quite a bit of technical background. You have to know how to do some coding or modeling or something like that, but you have to work on a tech team in order to do that. So if you've had any experience with virtual reality, I'm going to guess it's probably been through the movies. There's been Ready Player One came out there a couple of years ago, maybe 3 or 4, and its premise was reality sucks. So go into the virtual world where things are fun, and you saw in there some pretty advanced virtual reality graphics, and if you did watch it, you saw haptic suits and things like that to make people feel like they were moving around. If you subscribe to Amazon Prime, you might have come across the show called Upload. Very, very interesting take on virtual reality. Again, taking it just a little bit beyond what's actually possible right now, but starting to put in existential questions about, well, who are we and what is it if we do have such a thing as virtual reality? So some very interesting things. This picture in the middle is worth noting. This is actually a game. This is from a place I took my kids to have a birthday party. You can have 4 or 5 people. They are all donning headsets and they're playing a game in a medieval forest. And you can say, this guy even has like a wand. That's the bow and arrow. And so they're playing like they really do have the weapons. So virtual reality is not too far off, but I want to make sure we understand today that it's not just for gamers and sci-fi fans. There's actually a lot going on that goes beyond that. And we're going to talk a lot about today is changing behavior. And I'm sure you know that whenever you've tried to learn something new or even take on a new habit, you've had probably lots of them that you've tried to start since COVID lockdown and everything changed for you. It's hard. It's really hard to make yourself do something if the benefits are really far in the future. So we're going to talk about, well, how does virtual reality help in that? And how can it help me learn new things? But to get there, we're going to start with the definitions, because I've learned that there's some wildly different ideas about maybe what I'm talking about. So let's make sure we understand where I'm coming from so that we can all go forward with this presentation. So virtual reality is when you fully immerse yourself into an imaginary world. It's usually computer generated, it's interactive, it's 3D, it's around you, right? So you're fully immersed in it, and most importantly, you're blocked out of the real world. You don't know the real world exists unless you run into your furniture, which I've done. Augmented reality, on the other hand, really supplements the real world. So think of, you can see the real world as you normally would, but we project computer images over top. And I'm going to show you what that could look like as we go through this today. In reality, though, this is all on a spectrum, from virtual to augmented reality, from the physical world right through to the virtual world. And there's augmented reality, there's virtual reality, people call it mixed reality, I've heard of extended reality, and more, the industry has just come to agree that XR is an umbrella term that refers to everything. So if you hear me say XR or you see it out in the world, it basically means anything that's not the physical world. It's an umbrella term, and it could mean anything. And a lot of this is around the fact that virtual worlds can have augmented pieces in them, augmented worlds can have virtual worlds, and they started mixing the medias so much that it just doesn't make sense to try and keep them separate anymore. So now we get to the bones of what I want to really talk about today. And this is the potential of VR technology. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit, but I've got a lot of videos queued up. And I'm hoping, I reset my modem, my internet was a bit unstable earlier, so now I'm hoping everything goes well for you as I take this through. And that just reminded me I probably didn't share the screen right. So I might have to stop my screen share in a minute when I try to start this. So the biggest thing that when we think about VR is we want to talk about how does it actually make us better humans? How does it enable us to do more? And this is sort of enabling behavior. And this is where AR is taking a front seat and really moving forward. You can see in this picture, this guy can see some text that's ahead of him. And this can be used in training. Imagine you're in field operations and you've been trained fairly well, but you get out there in the field and all of a sudden you're like, wait, this piece of equipment's not set up the way I was trained on, and I thought this and I thought that. Well, what if you had a headset that the people back at head office also had a headset, could see what you could see, and then they could superimpose, here, use that bolt, here, screw this, torque this one here. Now you're back at the instrument panel, So you can see how it could help in that way. It is also making headway at in some operations of some plants. So I'm going to share this. Lucas, tell me if you hear the voice coming over on this.
I can.
Yeah? Okay.
Technology has always played an integral part in further improving warehouse operations. With the rise of augmented reality, we're about to take a leap ahead. DHL and Ricoh have piloted vision picking to drive the next wave of supply chain innovation that simplifies operations.
Vision picking is essentially equipping pickers with smart glasses that enable complete hands-free order picking. Today, we're using a mix of handheld scanners and a paper pick list, but we think we can make this process leaner and also more user-friendly by taking a paper and hands-free approach.
Vision picking can greatly increase productivity, reduce errors, and support our employees in their daily work. To find the best solution, we teamed up with Ubimux, the leading experts on wearable computing. Their vision picking solution is the most mature and flexible on the market, and we're easily able to tailor this to our environment and deploy it on the Vuzix and Google Glass.
Now the order picker can easily log in and begin picking by scanning the next available trolley. Using Ubimax's innovative user interface, task information is displayed clearly in front of his eyes. The trolley is also displayed graphically, so that the picker sees instantly what needs to go where. This could provide a much faster, more accurate, and user-friendly approach to order picking compared to standard paper pick lists and handheld scanners. Our first pilot proved a significant performance increase due to time efficiency and error reduction. It also received high scores from the pickers regarding user acceptance and usability.
Here at Ricoh, we're always looking to further improve our processes and implement new technologies into our warehouse. We are proud to have DHL as our innovation partner to jointly test this together.
This is just the first step in our innovation journey. In the future, we see augmented reality also playing a role in other parts of the supply chain. We look forward to continuing to bring innovation to our customers.
So there you see a very interesting application for augmented reality. And you can see how this would improve their work. Suddenly, all these sheets they used to carry around and try and find things, they can now see it on there. Imagine as well that it was projected on their glasses where they needed to go to find certain things. And I've heard industry wanting to have contractors equipped with some of this so that when they arrive on a very, very big plant and they have to make it to a certain corner to fix that one little thing they've been called in to fix, that they would be able to be guided along on this. And there are many other technologies, but this is one of them that might work well for that. The other thing that VR does really well is it allows you to learn empathy. And this is because, you know the saying, you need to walk in someone else's shoes to really understand, go walk a mile in their shoes to understand it. Imagine you could actually do that, and you can in virtual reality, and that's the greatest thing. So they've been starting to use this in areas where they need to develop empathy. So think about medical professionals who need to understand what it's really like to have schizophrenia before they start trying to talk to somebody. They really need to understand what it's like to be the parent or the child. receiving the news that they have that the child has cancer. And virtual reality, and those are real life examples of research that's been done, but those are things that you wouldn't be able to do without virtual reality. But it's not just limited to some medical and hypothetical ideas. I actually have a video here from Hilton of how they use it to develop empathy.
Every day at the corporate office, we make decisions that impact the team members at the hotel. We really needed to make sure that our corporate team members understand the complexity of working in a hotel. Oculus for Business has really shifted the way we work. We can truly upskill team members faster and really focus on empathy building, which was a game changer for us.
We then said we can use this tool to be able to really help our team members practice different scenarios of building empathy with our guests and make sure that we are delivering best-in-class service.
Hi, I'm here to check in.
If we were to try to do this in a traditional setting, when you have 400,000 team members, that is not something that comes in an inexpensive way for us, and nor do I think it's realistic.
Every time there's been a significant advancement in the way you interact with computers, something great happens. So when the Quest came out, it was groundbreaking for us because just like that, you have 60 RF possibilities for your experience. Having all this available to you allows you to concentrate in what's most important, that getting what the client sees when they close their eyes and making it happen.
To me, virtual reality is absolutely the future of learning. It just genuinely immerses the team member in the experience.
Once you see this and can experience how much it can build empathy and change behavior, it's really the best tool by which we can simulate a real experience.
When clients ask, how can we develop this? How can we create this for the masses? Now we have an answer for that, the Quest.
So a little bit of a plug for the Quest there at the end, but you can really see how Hilton has decided that they need to use it to build empathy, but also to scale that training, because there's no other way that they can do that. And we're seeing this a lot more, that scale in training. Now that COVID's hit, I have a lot more requests about, well, how can we use VR to onboard people and train people when we can't fly them around anymore? We can't have them come physically into the office anymore, and that kind of thing. So starting to happen more and more. Another thing that's great about VR is you can experience consequences, and they're not really a consequence, right? And so this one is, it's funny, when I worked at CAE, we brought tours through we brought these healthcare people through, and they all wanted to try and fly a plane just for fun. One guy just really wanted to crash the plane. He wanted to experience that consequence. Usually you don't let people go that far because you don't want, it is pretty gut-wrenching because you do feel like you're in there. And that's why virtual reality has that impact. Here's another little video that comes from the Stanford, I think I had it there. Oh, okay. The Stanford Virtual Human Interaction Lab. And they've been doing research for 20 years about how does virtual reality help people in various ways. And I want to show you a little clip of, somebody cutting down a tree. And then I'm going to explain the experiment they did and what came out of it. I might have to fast forward a bit through this. Okay, so this is them, or some participant in this study is actually cutting down a tree. They've got the chainsaw, there's haptic feedback in that the handhelds that makes it feel like there's resistance, and they actually cut down the tree. So what they did in this study is they wanted to find out if it changed behavior, if they had a group that came through and had to cut down a tree, and then they learned how many paper towels that made, or how many rolls of toilet paper that made. And they had a control group that received a bunch of slide presentations on the same thing. And then they had them, the two groups go and they do the thing, do the experiment, and then they have them sit down and do out a questionnaire. While they had them fill out the questionnaire, they accidentally spilled water all over the table, and they had a pre-selected number of, you know, paper towels to help them wipe it up, and they asked if the participant would help them wipe it up. The participants who had actually cut down a tree with the haptics and the virtual reality used an amazing amount less, like 80% less paper towels as the person who didn't. So it changed the behavior just because they knew what it was like to change, you know, cut down that tree and then have to make that a real life choice of, oh, that's that tree I just cut down. I mean, I don't want to waste all those paper towels. So very interesting little things that they do. But this has been told time and time again. I mean, it's funny when I do some reading, everybody uses the same anecdote that was used on me like 10, 12 years ago. And that's texting and driving, right? Everybody knows they shouldn't text and drive until they've had a problem with texting and driving. Let's hope it's not a car crash, but sometimes it is. It's something like that. I have to admit, I was a bit the same. I was like, I don't text and drive. Well, just a little bit here and there, until I got caught. The day I got caught and got served a $700 fine was the last day I texted while I was in the car. I should say I wasn't even really driving. The car was stopped at the time. But that's something that if in VR you could have people experience those consequences, then they're more likely to adopt the changing behavior. So now you can, I imagine you're starting to think, oh, well, smoking cessation, you know, lots of things could be affected. And in fact, I did see one, now this is a good 10 years ago, I saw a guy just starting out in VR, and he had a lot of luck, and I should say he was a doctor who was trying to work on smoking cessation. And he had a VR game where you walked through and you crushed cigarettes. That was the goal. You had to crush them every time you saw them. And he had a very high success rate on people, you know, stopping smoking. So I saw some early evidence, you know, a long time ago on that coming through. Another thing that we are very bad at as humans is knowing what we'd be like in the future. We have a real hard time trying to figure out what that's like. So I had this video that explains this part really, really well. And so we're just going to sit with them for a couple minutes here, because it's very interesting. It's a future self project out of Stanford again.
Stanford University. I asked students here at Stanford to envision themselves at 30. They can do that very easily. They imagine themselves as they are today, only with more money and nicer cars. Then I ask them to imagine themselves at 40, and it gets to be a little hazy, but they now have children. You go to 50 and 60, hazy, hazy, hazier, and you get to 70 or 80, and there's no image at all. They can't envision themselves. They can't picture themselves at that point in life. At the center, we work with over 130 faculty members who are spread across all 7 schools at Stanford, and bring them together to launch new research endeavors aimed at solving practical problems of aging individuals and aging societies.
We decided to work on a project where we could actually present young participants with vivid, realistic images of themselves when they were at retirement age. See if that could impact long-term decision making. We use graphic software to build an avatar that is a representation of a person to really make her face in virtual reality look just like her face in the physical world. We then use graphics programs, algorithms to age that person, that is to form the mesh of the face and to change the texture of the face so it's got the color and shape of what someone will look like in the future. Our participants come into the lab and we put the head-mounted display on their heads, and in the virtual world and in our research experiment, participants see a virtual mirror in front of them, and they spend a few minutes getting acquainted with that person, whether
who's staring right back at them in the mirror. And after a little while, after they've spent that time doing this exercise, we take the goggles off of their head and have them go through several questionnaires, some of which relate to financial decision making.
And those students who had interacted with their older avatars, their older selves, allocated twice as much money to their retirement savings as those students who had interacted with an avatar the same age as they are today.
We're facing a crisis right now where young people are not putting enough money into retirement savings. And if we can have them, give them some visceral sense of what it's going to be like when they're older, we can inspire them to save more money now.
To the extent that the majority of people arrive at old age mentally sharp, physically fit, and financially secure, then the problems of individual aging and societal aging really recede away and will begin to shift from a conversation about old age and frailty to a conversation about long life and health. And that's much more interesting.
Oops, I didn't mean to cut it off right there. Pretty exciting, eh? People who saw themselves 60 years down the road save twice as much money. That's an amazing kind of impact on something so simple as being able to put yourself in your future self's shoes and understand what that looks like. So pretty impactful. The other thing that we all like VR for when we're trainers and we're instructors, we really like the ability for it to have feedback. There's immediate feedback. You will know. You don't have to wait for a while in order to get that feedback. I myself did get to fly in the virtual cockpit at CAE, and I couldn't land the plane. And I had immediate feedback. I mean, I could tell when it wasn't going to land right, and immediately told the instructor to pull it back out a kilometer so I could try again, because I had no intention of ever taking myself through a crash. But this is something that is available. And so I'm going to show you the next video is something that I just learned about a couple weeks ago. HP has a whole suite of products that they have. And how many people are, afraid of, have a bit of phobia about public speaking, or they're trying to, practice in some way, but they don't really want to practice, and there really isn't anybody giving you feedback. Well, they have a product that does just that, and it's pretty convincing. So I'll just take you through that.
Hello, my name is Alice. Hi everyone, I'm Alice.
And how many of us have done this?
Thank you everyone for joining me today. It's a pleasure to talk to you all. I'm going to be sharing our first quarter results with you. Today I'll be reviewing our department's recent performance. We've made tremendous progress updating our website and online presence. Hi everyone, I'm Alice. I'm going to be talking about the New York office's performance last quarter. You'll note that surveys reported nearly a 30% rise in customer satisfaction. Here you can see that most of the increase is due to our improved website design and shorter response times to customer questions. Our marketing efforts have of helpful features. And there are many more great features on our roadmap. In addition, we hired 2 graduates who contributed significantly to our recent success. In closing, this past quarter has been our best yet. We're excited to keep this momentum up, and I'm confident we will. Thank you.
So you can see that's pretty convincing. You can practice. They've made the audience mimic real audiences who ignore you, check their phones. Maybe some look like they're sleeping, some look maybe engaged. So they've done a good job at mimicking that, but they also have that feedback to tell you, hey, you're focused on too much in this side of the room. Make sure you shift your focus. Or I love the whole, if you have too many ums or likes or whatever, they make them come out of your mouth as text so that you immediately know, oh, I'm using those little connector words and should stop doing that. So very, very interesting what they've come up with there. Another big thing that VR can do is help with emotional regulation. And this is happening a lot in mental health. So I talked a little bit about, schizophrenia and that allowing some people to have empathy for them. But what about using it for some mental health to make people feel better? And the one example that I think depicts this the best is in seniors, especially in long-term care facilities, where, especially now in COVID, they don't have the ability to go out. They don't, they often live in their own world because of dementia. And there's lots that goes on with that. So sometimes this is, they're living in a different world. That my mom was just telling me about the last few months that my grandmother was alive, and how every time she went to visit her, my grandmother would talk about the trip she took that day and how fantastic it was. And yet she was just in her mind because she hadn't actually gone anywhere. But the interesting thing is in long-term care facilities is there is a time of day called at right near sundown where they call it the sundowner syndrome, where suddenly people with dementia get agitated. They get anxious, and then they have behavior problems. So the people on staff spend a lot of their time trying to calm down these people, when really what needs to be happening is everybody needs to get fed, their medications have to be given on time, and there's a lot of general activity going around. And so one of the solutions has been to use virtual reality to transport the seniors into a different world. And I'll give you a view of what that's like for seniors.
Okay, Ralph, here we go. Put this on.
So today we're going to see the world with virtual reality.
I've seen it on TV, but never like this.
What are you seeing? I swear I feel it. I love it. Yeah, it was fantastic.
So, and I have heard that there are long-term care facilities in Ontario already using this. There's a company out there selling this kind of thing. So it's already starting to find its way in there. But you can tell from that how pleased those seniors were to really feel like they were there. You saw the woman who was getting out of the way of the cows, which was super funny. And that's generally what happens, is that they really feel like they've been transported to another place. If you play a little bit on YouTube, you can find some really cool videos that weren't able to be integrated into this, where there's some very ornery, old person who's just like, this is terrible, terrible. And then all of a sudden they put the VR on and she's like, oh, this is lovely. So transported her right away into a better world where she was happy and everybody else around her was much happier as well. So VR, you've heard me make mention many times about aviation, but what they really did in 20 years is they went from a culture of condemning and blaming. This would be about the early 80s, they started realizing planes didn't fall out of the sky because of mechanical problems anymore. Planes fell out of the sky because of human error. And how were they going to fix this? And it took them a while, but they came up with training, and they've really moved into this virtual reality world in a way that has transformed the way pilots learn how to fly. And in fact, every 4 months, pilots have to go back in to the training center for 4 hours in this level D simulator to prove that they know what they're doing. But they also take them through new scenarios. So I don't I don't know if any of you remember when Scully had to land the plane on the Hudson. I was actually flying that day, so I didn't get to hear because they block all kinds of media when you're in an airport. So what they did after that is all the pilots wanted to know, like, can I fly? Can I figure out how to land on water? What's that going to be like? So they programmed it in. And now that's part of a lot of training programs. Is one of the disaster scenarios you go through is you get to make that choice of whether you need to land on water or not, and then can you actually carry that out? So it's something that virtual reality has allowed them to not only build up training, but take real life scenarios and put them back into the training to further bolster that kind of training. I have a few more videos here for you of various other things that are being used. So this one here, this is using augmented reality. Again, there is no sound on this one. So imagine this, you're at the airport and these cargo bins have to be loaded very quickly. Having a plane on the tarmac is very costly. So they've outfitted the grounds crew with augmented reality glasses. You can see that it's projected right there on that bin. They know exactly which plane it's going in, where it's going, and they're able to chop a couple minutes off of that ground time, which is amazing. Another big thing is you can train people remotely. And think about needing to train somebody on equipment that's not yet installed. And this is a great example of how you can teach somebody how to swap out that equipment before it arrives so that they can decrease their downtime. Because for a lot of companies, downtime can be up to millions of dollars. So the faster they can do turnovers, the better. So if they can do training before any piece of equipment arrives, they can remove a lot of that downtime and save a lot of money. Another area that is getting a lot of virtual reality these days is architecture. And the architecture program has some of this worked in, where I've seen some of the work that comes from their students. This is just an example of where it can be used. And I think this was rather long, so I'm going to skip through in a minute. But this one allows you to kind of build your house. It allows you to fill it. I've seen many examples of, you can go in, change the paint, change the cupboards, change the floor, see how that changes the look and feel of everything. Look at where the windows are placed and what that looks like for the sun rising and setting. How do the shadows play off in the actual house that you plan on building? VR is also being used in architecture to do walkthroughs. One fun thing I find really interesting is when you're building something and you want to find out if there's interference. Do things work the way, like if you're only designing in 2D, it's really hard to find out what that third dimension fits like. And being able to put that into virtual reality and walk around and see, do I have room in between here to maneuver whatever I need to maneuver. It's also being used to, get people excited about a redevelopment. So Mohawk was pretty instrumental in the McMaster Innovation Park in creating a fly-through of it and what it would look like, so that people could see it and investors could see it before it was ever really built. So you can see some, artificial light settings. And lots in there. Another thing that's especially important right now in COVID is any kind of tourism or cultural immersion. So we can't fly around anymore, but there are lots of places that tourism was starting to actually make the whole, where it was, whether it was the Coliseum like this is, it was actually starting to deteriorate because of all the tourism. So this allows people to be able to experience it a little bit differently. And we've been working most recently with the Six Nations and a group out of McMaster, out of the Global Water Futures, on helping them recreate some of their beliefs in their cultural ceremonies around water. And this was all to impact youth who would be the viewers of this experience, so that they would have a good sense of why they should care about the quality of the water for that. So I'm going to show you this video. It's going to take me a little longer to queue up here. So this is something the students in the classroom actually completed. We'll be doing a little bit more so that the sturgeon doesn't go through the canoe there. But you can see you're in an old style canoe. You can see turtles. And what you're doing is you're seeing the corn here. Corn was always around the outside of the longhouses or the settlements, so that people wouldn't know that there was a settlement there. And it also served the purpose of, it's really hard to walk through cornfield without rustling the corn, so people would know if somebody was approaching for an attack. And at this point, you know, this is the longhouse. You can go in and work, find some, I think we had them looking for the beans, the three sisters. So beans, squash, and the seeds of corn. And once you're done your quest, and there are many more things that are in there now. You can watch cultural videos of elders talking about some water ceremonies, and we're still collecting more and more of those cultural ceremony videos as we go. And then you're transported through time, and this is more the industrial age. We went through this, we're still in this, where we didn't treat water all that well. We let garbage get into it. We built bridges, we built farms right near the water. And so this is to make you feel, oh, okay, I see. This is what industrialization did for this. And then there's a portion where you can, again, disembark the boat or the canoe. It's a canoe. And you can find out, okay, what do I need to know about how to clean up the water? And where do I go from here? So that one's not quite complete. There's still some more to be done on that one. That's why I'm going to stop it there, because it kind of peters out. But it's an hour for a Mohawk into how we're going to be crossing this divide and making a story around culture so that people can really understand that. So I wanted to loop back after all of those like great examples of what's possible, so that you can really get an idea of like VR and AR have these possibilities that are endless. But what are we doing at Mohawk? Sorry, lost my mouse. There we go. Well, at Mohawk, we have several things going on. We're partnered with Eon Reality right now, and they're really helping us form out I'm going to call it the four-pronged approach. So we work very closely with Eon Reality to build out our VR multimedia graduate program. That's where the students actually learn how to build the scenarios like I just showed you there. We also work with industry in close collaboration so that we can help them take on some of the riskier parts of VR where they're like, I think I know what I want, or I don't know what I want. And now I get it. Now I know what I'm going to want to use VR for. So we work with them on that. We also do applied research, and sometimes that's with local industry as well, where we're trying to figure out what is the best way to do this, and how do we go about teaching somebody how to, and this one's fall prevention. How do we teach them fall prevention measures in a way that keeps them safe, but changes their behavior so that they choose the right fall protection mechanism for the situation that they're in. And of course, we continue working internally with our faculty to make sure that more and more of our faculty are using VR in their classes. And we have some excellent examples of this one here was done in the community services. So they wanted to train students before they went out on field placement. And in fact, they weren't able to do field placement this year. But they wanted to give the students a way of understanding some of the difficult conversations they might have. And so this one's an example where you would log into your computer into a Zoom session, but instead of seeing somebody else on the other side, you saw an avatar. And that avatar was your boss at work. And they're very busy and they're a bit rude to you. And you have to figure out how to navigate that situation in a way that's diplomatic, but also that gets the feedback that you need, because you actually need to have a form checked off in order to leave your placement. So there was some really interesting things there that they were able to do. And we're going to continue that program, probably expand it to some other types of training, because that's a very interesting soft skill, or you could call it emotional intelligence training in a virtual way that doesn't really require any special equipment. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the VR program, because I want to show you a little bit of how we worked with industry in this. So multimedia program means that you're going to learn how to do modeling. So you really do learn every piece of the puzzle when it comes to putting together an AR or a VR scenario. So 3D modeling, starting out, how do you make those objects that are going to be in the virtual world? How do you animate those? So there's boning and rigging and animation. And then you have to learn a little bit of coding in order to start working in Unity, to start really building out how do you bring in those models with animation. How do you make them interactive so that when you grab it, you can grab it? And so that if you hit it, you actually do intersect. So there's lots of has to happen in the virtual world. So learning how to do that. You also learn how to develop a product, how to go from that idea through to designing and developing a product. And entrepreneurship is another thing that we have in many of our programs to make sure people know what to do with the skills afterwards if they want to start their own company. AR, VR storytelling was very important when it came to that cultural Aneganos project I just showed you. And this is where you really start learning about how do you have that impact on participants. How do you use VR or that new media to really have a lot of the impacts that we were talking about in this talk? And at the so you do a lot in the first semester and a little bit in the second semester, but that second semester, we pair you up with industry and you really learn to work as a team, building out a product for industry. And here's a little video showing how that went the first time we did it with an industry partner.
Our goal to complete in this project was take an idea that the manufacturing company wanted us to build and simulate their products.
Things were changed. We realized that we could do more here, less there, so a lot of the features fell and a lot of new features came in.
We came into it not knowing, and now instead of having no idea what to do, we have so many ideas of what we can do with it. It's going to be difficult for us to pick and prioritize what we want to do next.
So you can see in there that you could see how collaborative things were in the classroom. And that's really what has to happen. We have to work together in order to build that out. We have to bring the industry partner in and really work with them about, is this what you're expecting? Where do we need to go from here? You heard them talk about how, we thought we knew what we were doing, and then we had to change. That's what learning around the agile methodology is all about, is you do a small increment, and then you find out if you're on track by bringing in that industry partner and working with them. And then the industry partner, you heard say, hey, we didn't have a clue what we wanted to do. There was so many things and we didn't know what would work and then now we have lots of ideas of where we could take this from here. And in fact, they have then built this out in other ways at in their industry. So I'd like to take a moment now and just answer any of the questions that you have. I do try to keep an Instagram up. I have not done it since COVID hit. So I was trying to make sure Mohawk at Mohawk AVR had little clips about what the students were working on and what they were doing. But you can also find me on LinkedIn. So let me know if you have any questions. So Elizabeth is asking me, what would I suggest for a dabbler? I assume you're meaning just something to get going? Oh, that would be a good question. Sorry, somebody asked if I could just post this again. For a dabbler to get going, trying it out is the easiest thing. I do have one way that you can do it. I don't have the latest on a slideshow, so I'm just going to show it. So let me see if I can show you what that looks like. I'm going to share my screen again, so I hope somebody's got that. I'm just going to show you an app that you can download and take a look at some things. I just need a cord, just a sec. All right. So you can see my phone here, and you can see this little icon here called Eon XR. I'm going to go into that. So you can find that whether you're on the Google Play Store or whether you're on the Apple apps. I don't know why I'm blanking on what that name is, but and once you're on there, you basically have the ability to look at some, let's call them XR lessons, because that's what they are. So they're often used in educational settings, or any time where you're wanting somebody to get oriented to something. It can orient you to manufacturing warehouse right now. And this is basically called a virtual tour. It's here under manufacturing. And this is a very interesting way to learn about what happens in a manufacturing place, because you really can't get into those. I mean, they're pretty much locked down. I have people in my family who worked in factories, and you never get to go in. But this is a great way to learn about them when you can't learn any other way. Give it a moment.
This VR 360 lesson is about a factory, manufacturing plant, or a production plant is an industrial site, usually consisting of buildings and machinery, or more commonly a complex having several buildings, where workers manufacture goods or operate machines processing one product into another.
So I hope you can still see my video. Zoom has made this disappear on my screen. So I hope you can still see the video of me. I've got my cell phone, and you can see I'm just moving it around. And I'm actually able to see that I'm up on a platform, and there's the ceiling, and I can look all around me. So this is a great way for you to kind of get a small glimpse of what it's like to be in VR. And any of these, I can click on these to find out more. So if I clicked on Toyota production
Discover
system,
how we build our trucks according to the Toyota production system. You can have a peek in our Ansnes factory in France, where we apply lean manufacturing to guarantee Toyota quality for our customers.
and I can take a little bit of a look of what it would be like if this was all in motion. So this is actually a 360 film or video. So you can see I'm now looking behind me, and I can see the truck starting to move. So this is one way you can get into dabbling. You can take a look at that and see where you can go in there. And that's something you probably have all the equipment for. There's other things I could suggest, but they require equipment. Excellent. And the other thing I didn't say is that someday when we all get back together, I'll have more of these. And this is, when you do have VR apps, you can put your phone right inside one of these, just like this. I'll do that. You put your phone right in there, put it in VR mode, and then you can view it, and you can see that you've got a pseudo virtual environment because you've been able to block out the outside world. So I hope that was super fun and that you check that out. Again, it's called Eon XR, and you can find it in the app stores.
I just wanted to thank you, Marilyn, for your time today, and we really appreciated your presentation. And just if folks want to reach out to us at all and get more information about AR/VR at Mohawk College, we can put you in contact with Marilyn, and we'd be happy to discuss with any high schools or industry partners that are interested in pursuing AR/VR. We're happy to get you engaged and connected. So thanks so much for your time, Marilyn.
No problem. Thank you for inviting me. This has been fun.
Thank you.